Hello everyone and welcome to this video. My name is Ariston and today we are going to talk about Python logical operators. Okay, so before we run any Python code, what we're going to do first is we're going to check if Python is installed in our local machine. So to do that, open up your terminal. And so you need to click this button here and then open the terminal. It also shows here a shortcut key, so you can use this shortcut key in the future if you want to open the terminal a little bit faster. So what you're going to do here is you're going to use the python -- version to be able to check for the version of the Python that is installed on your local machine. So in my case, that would be Python 3.11.9. So if it doesn't show here a Python version on your end, so that might mean that Python is not installed on your local machine. And if that is the case, go ahead and open your favorite browser and just type python.org/downloads, or you can also search for Python downloads. And in this page, you can download the latest version of Python for your specific operating system. In my case, in the time of recording this video, that would be the Python 3.12.3. So there is a high chance that when you are watching this video, the version of Python is higher. Don't worry, all of the codes that we're going to use for today would be applicable on your end as well. So go ahead and download the latest version of Python and then open up your Visual Studio Code and rerun this Python -- version here. And hopefully it will show you a Python version. Now, if it doesn't show you, but you are sure that you are successfully installed Python already, what you want to do is close out the Visual Studio Code and then open it up again. Then try to run Python -- version. There are times wherein we need to reload the IDE for it to be able to see the new installed Python right here. So let us go ahead and clear this one. And then let's start with creating a folder. So I already created the folder that is the Python logical operators. And we're going to use this folder right here. So inside of this folder, we're going to create a Python file, logical operators.py. Just like that one. And then let's close out our Explorer tab. We zoom this out a little bit so that you can see it a little bit better. So the first thing that we're going to do is add here a comment. So logical operators, just like this one. Now for logical operators, this is used to make decisions. So make decisions based on multiple conditions or expressions. Logical operators allow us to be able to combine multiple conditions and create more complex decision-making logic in our code. So the first logical operator that we're going to discuss is the AND logical operators. So in this case, let us have an example. So let's say we only want a student to be eligible for scholarship if that student have a good grade and also participates in extracurricular activities. So to do that code, we're going to create a variable good grades. And here, we are going to set this to true. And then for the next one, we're going to create a variable for extracurricular activities. Set this to true again. So we only want the student to be eligible for scholarship if that student has good grades and also participates in extracurricular activities. So here we're going to use a condition. So if good grades and the logical operator and extracurricular activities. So both of this would be the condition, and we're using the logical operator AND. So if the student have good grades and participates in extracurricular activities, that student is eligible for scholarship. And if this is not true, we're going to run the else block. So print not eligible for scholarship. So let's try to run this code. Let us go ahead and click the run Python file on the top. So this is what it returns to our terminal. It shows here that the student is eligible for scholarship. So why is that? To be able to discuss this a little bit further, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a truth table. So let me paste a truth table in our code. We're going to create a multi-line comment. So by using triple quotes, and then inside of this one, we're going to paste the comment. So what we can see here is what we call a truth table. So we have the first variable, good grades, and currently it is set to true, and the extracurricular activities variable is set to true as well. So we have here in our truth table, we have A and B. So A would be the good grades and B would be the extracurricular activities. So if we use the AND logical operator, so A and B, in this case, if the A is set to false and B is set to false, the output is false. Let's try that out. So set this to false. And set the other one to false as well. And let's try to run our terminal. Let's just clear our terminal first, then run. As you can see here, the student is not eligible for scholarship if the student doesn't have good grades and it doesn't participate in any extracurricular activities. So if the first variable is set to false and then the second variable is set to true, it would still return to us a false here. So let's try that out. So the second variable is set to true. Then let's clear our terminal. Let's run our Python file. As you can see, the student is still not eligible for scholarship. Let's clear this out. So for the third one, if the first variable is set to true and then the second one is set to false, it would return false. So let's set this to true. Then let's set the next one to false. And then let's try to run our code again. Check for the terminal. It is cleared. All right. Run our Python file. It says here, not eligible for scholarship. But if both of our variable is set to true, it would return to us a true here. So let's try that out. Set this to true. If we run our code, as you can see, the student is eligible for scholarship. So what we can conclude here, when we use the AND logical operator, it would only return to us a true if both of the variables that we have is set to true. So good grades and extracurricular activities should be true. So what this means is the student is only eligible for scholarship if the student have good grades and have or participates in extracurricular activities. Otherwise, if one of these conditions that we have here is false or both of them is set to false, then the output should be false. So that is all for the logical AND. Let's move on to logical OR. So let's change this to OR. So in this case, what happened is if the student have good grades or the student participates in extracurricular activities. So let's say, for example, both of our variable is set to true. In this case, the good grades is set to true, extracurricular activity is set to true. The output of using the logical OR is true. Then let's try this out. Let's clear first our terminal. Okay, it is clear already. Let's run our Python file. As you can see here, the student is eligible for scholarship. Let's clear this one again. And then if the first variable is set to true and that the second variable is set to false, let's try that out. So if you are using the logical OR operator, if you run this file, it shows here the student is still eligible for scholarship. So let's clear this one again. Then if the first variable is set to false, the second variable is set to true. So false and then true here. If you run this file, what we can see here, the student is still eligible for scholarship. So the output is still true. So if both of the conditions is set to false, therefore we will have the value of false. Let's try this one out. So set both of them to false. Then run our code. So let's clear this one first. Then run it again. As you can see, the student is not eligible for scholarship because the student doesn't have a good grade and also doesn't participate in any extracurricular activities. So the difference between the AND and OR operator is for the AND, it would only return true if both of the condition is set to true, just like A and B here set to true. Otherwise, if one of those conditions is false or both of them are false, it would return false. Now for the OR logical operator is it would only return to us a false if both of our condition is set to false, if both good grades and extracurricular activities is set to false. That is where it would return a false. But if one of them have a true value or both of them have a true value, it would result to a value of true. So that is the AND and the OR logical operators. So the next thing that I want to briefly discuss is what we call the short circuit evaluation. Let's change this back to AND. And then let's set the good grade to false, but the extracurricular activities to true. So this short circuit evaluation, it happens whenever a certain condition is met and then it doesn't matter if you're going to check the other conditions because a certain condition is met already. So what would happen is, in this case here, we have if good grades and extracurricular activities. This condition here will perform short circuit evaluation. So we have here the good grades set to false, and then we have the logical operator AND. In this case, what would happen is it would check for the value of good grades, that is false, and then we use the AND here. What happened is it would automatically execute this part of the code and it would not even check for the value of the extracurricular activities variable. Why is that? Because the logical AND operator, it will only return a true if both of them are true. And if it checks the good grades, it is set to false, so it would not check for the extracurricular activities. It would automatically run this part of the code because this is set to false already. So it already breaks this rule right here, wherein if both of them are true, then it will only return a true. If it sees a false, therefore it would return a false. Just like on this one. So that is short circuit evaluation. Let's try to run this code again to showcase this one. Let's clear our terminal and run this out again. As you can see, the student is not eligible for scholarship. So let's clear this one and then let's move on to the next logical operator. The next logical operator is the not logical operator. Let's remove all of this code that we have here. And for the not logical operator, we're going to have another example. So let's say, for example, we only want a student to pass a certain subject if that student have a passing grade. So let's create a variable here, passing grade, and let's set this to a false value, just like on this one. And then the condition here is if they're going to use the not operator, passing grade. If not passing grade, then you're going to print student does not pass the subject. And then else, print the student passes the subject. So what is happening in this code that we have here? What happens is we use the logical operator not in this case. So if we don't have this not here, in this condition, if passing grade, so what would happen is it would check if the passing grade variable is set to true. And if it is set to true, it would run the code that we have here. So when we add here the not, it would negate the value of this passing grade here. So it would now check if the passing grade variable is set to false. And if it is set to false, it would run this code that we have here. And if it is set to true, it would run this code. So here, when we run this code, let us check for the terminal. It is clear. Let's run this code. What we can see is the student does not pass the subject. Why is that? Because what we can see here is the passing grade is set to false. And in this condition, it is checking if the variable passing grade is set to false. So if not passing grade, meaning the student doesn't have a passing grade, it would run this code wherein the student does not pass the subject. So we have here false, so the student doesn't have a passing grade. That's why it runs this one. And if we set this to true, just like this one, this means that it will not run this condition, or it will not satisfy this condition. Therefore, it would run this part of the code wherein the student passes the subject. So let's check our terminal. Let's clear this out and then run our code. As you can see, the student passes the subject because the student have a passing grade. So when you are using the logical operator not, what it would do is it would revert or reverse the value. So if the A, so not A in this part, so if the A variable is set to false, it would reverse the value into true. And if A is set to true, it would reverse the value into false. So that is the logical not operator. And I hope you gained something from this video. And if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and go ahead and subscribe to the One Code Camp channel. And we hope to see you on the next one. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good day.